Great to have you on.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for inviting me. Great to have you here in Tel Aviv with us.
It's so exciting. I've been the sun and been missing it a lot from the UK. That's for sure. So
Yeah,
getting it
I
over here,
can imagine. I can imagine. Yeah, UK is great, but yeah, the weather here is better. So for sure.
completely. So super excited for today. So thank you for coming on the show. Um, I guess taking it right back. So 8200 serial entrepreneur started Glilot 15 years ago now.
Almost 15 years ago.
Almost
Yeah.
15 years
Yeah.
ago. Tell us a bit about you.
So as you said, born and raised in Tel Aviv, or became a computer geek from a young age, and then got recruited to Unit 8200, which, to be honest, I knew nothing about when I joined. Back then, it was very secretive. So
Yep.
even my sister was there, and I didn't even know. Anyway, served 6 exciting years there, and then actually joined a startup, not as a founder, the first guy after the founders. Super exciting journey. Learned a lot. Moved to the U.S. Also in this job for around a year, and then felt ready to start my first company. So I did it. This was started my first company back in, the years now escape me. Back in '99. Ran the company for a few years. The bubble burst came. Ended up shifting the company more to focus on the Japanese market. Sold the company in Japan. Came back home, started another company that morphed into a cyber company, sold it as well, and then started Gilot back in 2010, 2011, and as the world first cybersecurity fund, believe it or not. So back
Oh, wow.
then, no one was talking cyber. There was also almost no other focused fund at all. So we came with a completely different concept of starting a fund that is super dedicated, starting very early, but with a lot of experience and hands-on capabilities in a specific market. So not just mastering a domain, but also really helping companies. Yeah, that's how we started.
Mm. I think it's amazing. How important do you think that's been? Because you as a previous entrepreneur that launched Glilot, obviously the venture firm. How important has that been for you?
Super important. I think it's also baked into our DNA that we try very much to think like entrepreneurs. I'll let you know another story. Like, back in the day when I was an entrepreneur, I used to talk badly about VCs. I mean, to me, it was like the bad guys, like the dark side, not really understanding, not really helping. Um, and of course, it's not accurate, right? Like everything. But I think again, we started with a lot of DNA of being on the side of the entrepreneurs, thinking very much along the lines of how entrepreneurs are thinking and thinking how we can help entrepreneurs and push them forward. And I think this is still a big part of our DNA, and it's still a big part of what makes us unique.
Mm. I've, as I mentioned before, before the podcast, I've been stalking some of your posts, and a couple of things I'm going to mention today. But one of the important things that you mentioned a lot is being very involved with the founders, and especially early doors, and even throughout the process, going past different rounds. Why do you think that's critical, especially for yourself, and maybe the experiences that you've had in the past as well, thinking VCs are not necessarily there
Yeah.
15 years ago? What is that like?
Yeah. No, it's a great question. Actually, baked into our model that we prepared 15 years ago when we built the fund. By the way, I think one of the only funds, at least back then, that started with a very clear strategy, not just, okay, we'll invest, but starting with something very clear. No, the idea still back then was that money or funds becomes a commodity, right? So everyone can gather, a few millions and put some money to work. And we felt that if you really want to get the best entrepreneurs, if you really want to be able to get the best companies, we need to have something other than just money. So the idea is we need to help entrepreneurs, but in a structured way, right? So I had investors as an entrepreneur that helped, but their help was more very almost anecdotal, right? So you would sit in an airport next to someone that could be an interesting lead. You would push the lead to your companies. We're trying to do things much more in a much more structured way, very much data driven, and along very defined processes, so that we can repeat the same process again and again for different companies, and also learn from one company to the other and get better and better. And we actually started with the main process, or the main processes in the beginning were suited for very young companies, but now we have a whole list of different things we can do for companies. It's almost like an a la carte menu of different things we can do. And it starts from a very, very young age of a company to very mature companies. And again, it's all very data driven. So we can say, you know what, here you're doing good, you're okay because we have all the data from 60 companies previous to you. And there are some other places where we can say, you know what, here you can do a little bit better because we see the data, you're still not there in terms of the response rates. And it's mostly based on our advisory board, which is today about 150, 200 executives, mostly CISOs, not just CISOs, also VP engineering, VP R&D, CFOs, but mostly CISOs, and again, structured processes to help push companies forward. I think super important. And in today's market, that's what brings you the best entrepreneurs, but this is also what gives those companies this extra push that allows them not just to be good, but to be really great.
Yeah. No, I love it. I love it because Glilot now has got 1.3 under management. You've had 23 exits. And I know we're going to talk through some of the companies later on, which is super, super exciting. But I want to start things off with something from one of your posts.
Okay.
AI and the combination of AI and security brings amazing opportunities which Israeli tech will benefit from in ways we're yet to understand.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Wow, this is really something that is exciting to me. So again, as you said, I'm doing this for 15 years now, and I was an entrepreneur before. So I witnessed the internet revolution as a young entrepreneur, and then the mobile revolution and the cloud revolution, all amazing things that happen on us and impacted our lives in more than one way. But I think the AI revolution is bigger than those three that I mentioned. And we can talk just hours why I think it's going to be bigger, but it's deeper, it's wider, it's going to be bigger. And specifically the combination of AI and cyber, I like to call it the perfect storm. I think three different things that coexist in a perfect timing together. One is, as I said before, AI becoming real, becoming big, becoming significant. That's one. Second, cyber. I cannot say that cyber is now becoming big, but cyber, if I look now to the future, it's going to be bigger than we ever imagined. We started doing this cyber VC 15 years ago. We thought it's going to be big, but now it's bigger than it was in 2010. And not just bigger, when you look into the future, it seems even more bright. For whatever reason, cyber goes up to the right. So AI, independent of cyber, is going up to the right. Cyber, independent of AI, is going up to the right. And the third part of this perfect storm is the Israeli ecosystem. Israeli ecosystem, specifically with regards to cyber, is in an amazing place. When we started Glilot, we said we believe that in cyber, Israel could be number 2 to the US. Looking back, we've been naive. I think now Israel, in many, many ways, is number 1, even if you take Silicon Valley or whatever. There are great entrepreneurs here, a lot of second timers, a lot of people that are, in terms of their capabilities, are just like second timers. So people that have been around, have been involved in young companies, know how to build cyber companies. So I think, and there's on the ecosystem, there are other things than just entrepreneurs. So I think this combination of, again, AI, cyber, and then the place of the ecosystem creates an amazing opportunity that's probably bigger than what I've seen in my lifetime. So I think the opportunity is huge.
I couldn't agree more. I've only been here for less than 24 hours, but obviously I've been here before multiple times. But this time I feel like with AI, cyber, there's all these different things happening in the market. I mean, even look at Anthropic and their recent, obviously, attack through, I think 80% of it was through AI and things like that as well. So it's now becoming more visible. And with more visibility, equals more cybersecurity. And I was even on I was watching the CEO of NVIDIA, Jensen, and he was talking about one of the biggest gaps between, as we go in the future, between it'd be like individuals AI, and then everyone will have their own AI, right? But cybersecurity is the biggest topic on there. It's like, how can they be protected? How can everything be protected? So it's a huge thing. But going back to like Israeli ecosystem and things on those lines as well, why do you think it is number 1?
Well, it's a great question, and when we started doing this, we said, if we're in Israel, we better do a cyber fund because you have all those IDF units and all this great talent that's being pulled into the unit at a young age, learns a lot, and then they're being sent off. But it's not just those units; it's also the multinational companies that are here. So for most big multinational companies, you'll have a big R&D center here, and it's also super important. So if you are a young person, girl or boy from Unit 8200 or Unit 81, and you serve there for, I don't know, 6 years, and then you go to Microsoft or to whatever, to Google, whatever, to do cybersecurity in Tel Aviv, then the odds are after that you'll be very well rounded. You have the technology, you'll have some understanding of business, of big companies, real companies, how they operate, and then there's also an amazing, obviously, startup ecosystem. So I think this combination, and in Israel, it's all like 0 degree of separation, right? It's all a very strong, neat network. So people learn from each other. There's no other place in the world where things are so dramatic. But to me, just like asking why Italians are so good in pasta, or why, I don't know, whatever, you got the drift, right? So it just turned into something that the Israeli ecosystem is good at, and one person is teaching the other, and people tend to start at a very young age, and they work for great companies at a very young age, so they learn. I think it's amazing. I call cyber the gift that keeps on giving, because it's really not ending. And again, for a company of the size, it's not, at the end of the day, it's not a huge industry. There are bigger industries, but for a country in the size of Israel, and because of this condensity around the cyber units and the IDF, and the important part of the IDF in our journeys, private journeys, it's almost the perfect thing for us. And it's again, this was the vision 15 years ago. I don't think we have imagined how strong and how dramatic it will be. If you look at virtually all the cyber domains, the leading companies will be Israeli related, right? Starting from, I know, firewalls, both Checkpoint and Palo Alto are Israeli founders. Cloud security, of course, with Wiz and some others. But even if you go to cyber for automotive, it's going to be our upstream. If you now go into cyber and AI, it's going to be I think Arnoma, and so forth and so forth. So and to me, it's amazing. It's amazing. We're building something right here, and I think could last for years to come. It's a real thing. It's not just a hype.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, you can even tell by some of the size of the exits this year. It's been pretty crazy. Like, where's 32 billion, CyberArk 25 billion. There's a lot of things going on in this world for sure.
Yeah, no, it's. I mean, yeah, if you follow the numbers, we tend to look at macro numbers. Like, if something changes with a few percentage points, that's a big change. If you look at M&As in Israel in the cyber domain, it's crazy, because they it's like about 4x exits 25 if you compare to 24, and 24 was already like, I think 60% higher than 23. So we're seeing two very, very strong years where the numbers go off the roof. In years of a war also, which is also crazy. But I think the real story is not about so M&A market is super strong. Another benefit of cybersecurity, very different than other markets. But I think the bigger story is the fact that people have the guts, the balls, so excuse the language, to start really big companies and to go a long way.
Yeah.
I think the story of Wiz at the end of the day is not the exit, but it's more the willingness and the desire to build a big company and not necessarily go to an exit route. And when people see what Wiz has done, or what friend Woody did with CyberArk and others, it just gives them, they're aspiring for more. And I think that's one of the other reasons why I'm so excited, is because entrepreneurs and funds have now the guts to really build big companies, and not settle for the 300, 400, 500 million dollar exit, which could be great, but it's just not enough for most of us these days. I think the fact that those things happen just breaks the glass ceiling in terms of what you aspire to, which is amazing.
Yeah, I've heard you talk about that a lot as well. You want to be able to build big companies, not just ones that get acquired really quickly, etc. Obviously, when you're looking at founders and going through the first initial things, how can you really feel that, like, are these the founders that's going to go and create a big company? How do you know that from right at the beginning?
Yeah, that's always a good question, and that's, to be honest, it's always tough, right? It's just, let's start with that. It's very hard to know. You're looking at a young team, who's going to be really great and not. And very openly, when let's say that you are a young guy of 30 something years old, and you got an offer to sell your company and net 30, 40, 50, million dollars, it's very, very hard to say no to. And it's one of those things that even if I will ask you before the investment and you'll say whatever you'll say, it's, who knows what will happen in real life. I think, to be, completely honest, it's very, very hard to know. And it's a very tough decision also to make. And again, I have to admit it, if I'm a young guy with nothing or, not too much, to my name, it's very hard to say no to those things. But yeah, I think the idea is to try to run very, very fast and to try to create to the founders secondary opportunities, so then they could, feel okay with their private wealth, even if they are deciding to go to this long and tough and risky journey of building a big company. And again, to me, what's exciting that we're seeing, at least we're seeing in our portfolio, more and more companies, more and more founders that are making this decision to go for the longer route, to make this, bet. And the fact that there are more and more of those, to me, is super encouraging.
Yeah, no, I love it. I think the long-term plan going big, right? Somebody once told me a long time ago, it's just as easy to build a small company than it is as it is a big company. So you might as well go big. I mean, the fundamentals are there, right? You still get stressed out no matter what, so you might as well go big.
Yeah. No, it's a tough journey and it's not easy, but it's so fulfilling. We just chatted about this before. I feel that we are just so fortunate, not just us, the two of us, but everyone that is, part of this ecosystem of this industry, is that, again, we live in a very special time where the cyber and AI meets in a perfect place for the Israeli ecosystem. And I think we are lucky, whoever is an entrepreneur or a VC even or whatever, I think we are on a crazy journey. Hopefully it would last for decades. But yeah, I mean, there's a chance that our grandsons will come someday and will ask us, Granddaddy, what did you do when all this, crazy revolution happened? So I think we are fortunate.
Yeah, no, definitely. You mentioned perfect storm between AI and cyber. One of the things at the bottom of your quote, you mentioned, in ways we are yet to understand. What is the future? What's coming?
So I think there are three different components there, that each one of them is super exciting and is at least theoretically endless in its own way. One is protecting AI, right? And that's one of the gifts in cyber, is that whenever there's a new wave of technology, you need to protect this new thing, and you need to almost rebuild your stack to be able to protect this new thing. We saw it with cloud security more recently, is that some great companies have been built to protect cloud. We've seen it also with mobile. We've seen it with, again, every big technology shift. And this is, of course, happening with AI as well. I mentioned that I led the seed round in Noma Security, that is, I believe, today the leader in terms of protecting AI. Already they did an A round and a B round, raised around $130 million in less than 2 years. But this is just one example. There are going to be more examples of companies that are protecting AI. So that's one big part, right? That is, to me, probably bigger than cloud security. Mm-hmm. The other part is what I like to call AI versus AI, right? So that bad people are using AI to create new attacks or to create more velocity around existing attacks or, whatever. And then we need to use AI on the defensive side to be able to cope with that. Again, it could be deepfake, it could be just existing attacks that are happening now in much, much higher velocity. So you need AI to be able to compete. And we have some companies there as well. Again, there's going to be a lot of companies there because it's about changing the way we operate in terms of the cyber operation and so forth. The third component, the third part, probably the biggest part, is even simpler. It's basically saying, in cyber, you're never satisfied. In most solutions, you're never satisfied because bad guys are also adapting and so forth. So we have the opportunity to rebuild existing domains, take on existing domains that have been around for years. And, CISOs have been, more or less happy with them. Some of it because they did not have better solutions, but use AI to do them much, much better. And I think right now, and I mentioned before, that entrepreneurs and VCs have the money and the capabilities to take bigger risks. We have bigger risks to tackle on, big vendors and say, yeah, there are some incumbents that are doing this for years and they're making whatever hundreds of millions of dollars or more, but we can take over. We can be better. And I think this is where some of and again, the fact that they are great entrepreneurs, second timers or close to second timers, a lot of money. And again, we've seen in the recent past that we can build, some very, very big companies. This gives us the energy and the will to start head on with those, big incumbents and not be afraid. Typically when I started my journey as an entrepreneur and also as a VC, we used to look for a small market that you can penetrate in and then hopefully expand from there. But now it's like, give me the big money, give me I don't care about competing with the big dogs. And I think to me, this is again super exciting. It means that the entire world is in our fingertips in terms of to try to take on. Of course, not everyone is going to be successful, but some will, and it's super exciting. If I'll have to guess, in 10 years or so, we'll not just see quite a few of AI security companies, but we'll see a lot of completely newcomers that will go to existing categories that are not necessarily around AI, and will reinvent them using AI. And to me, that's super exciting.
I think that is really, really exciting. I think I had a guy in the podcast a long time ago. He did two previous businesses going after a brand new market. So creating something from absolutely nothing in terms of going after. His third company is going after identity access management, going after the big players. But one thing that he said to me that was really, really interesting. They've already got budget. There's already a market there. Everybody knows what you're talking about. You're not creating anything. You're going after something that's kind of already there. So in some ways, it kind of could be, if you get the right products and solution and team and everything and backing the right VC behind you, it could be a really quick, because you skip the first 2 years of creating what a market could be.
Yeah. You don't have to wait for the market to happen. You don't have to to create market education. It is still not easy because you're head to head with some significant players that you have to give them a lot of respect. But again, I think the opportunities are very, very big, and to some extent, I think we learned it also in the last couple of years. For a well-funded private company, VC-backed company that's super aggressive with the right people, with the right VCs, sometimes it's easier to compete than a big public company because of all the limitations that a big company would have. And I don't want to repeat some of the names that have proved it, but I think we've seen it in the past, specifically in our domain. There's another thing that changed that we need to put attention to. Maybe 10 years ago or 7 years ago, it was not easy to convince a CISO to buy solutions from a startup, just like in any other industry. Now, most CISOs, at least the good ones, they understand that they need to buy from startups. So it became easier. So I think, again, one of the other reasons why I think we are for a great run is because I think right now that the power play have shifted between big companies and startup companies. And if you start your company right, you have a good chance to win over a Palo or a Checkpoint. And they're all friends, like both Nikesh and Nadav are friends, but it's becoming easier. So the balance is different than it used to be in the past.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's super exciting. You mentioned Noma Security. Now, I've been paying very close attention to Noma. I think they're awesome because obviously they're part of, you did it with Evolution Equity as well, right?
Yeah. Ballistic led the A and Evolution led the B. Yes.
Tell me about them. They look awesome.
No, I think it's a great story to give you an example of how the industry is moving very, very fast. So AI security kind of moved into our life about 2 years ago with a lot of companies. And to be honest, like most of them were claiming to do the same. They're all very fresh, so no one really did anything very different. And then I met Niv and Alon, the founders, and something clicked. We spoke before of how it's all about people, right? Yeah. It's all about the people at the end of the day. Like anyone can do theoretically anything. But really, really strong team with a very strong and very wide vision, going back to the point of being aggressive these days. So not with a pinpoint solution, but rather with a very wide solution that basically covers almost anything that relates to AI and security. which is again a little bit maybe counterintuitive because originally we were thinking, okay, maybe let's start narrow and then go wide. I think in this market actually makes a lot of sense to start very wide because the problem is so wide and it's still very hard to know, even for a customer, do I need exactly this or exactly this? So it's much easier to buy a wider solution. And yeah, just great entrepreneurs running super fast, very aggressive. Both in terms of signing customers, getting increasing the size of the team, or bringing strong talent in, and most importantly, customers. So it's been a crazy ride, and yeah, it seems like they'll be the winners of the space, specifically after there've been a few M&As already.
Yeah.
But yeah, great run. I have a few other great companies that are touching this area of AI security. It's going to be, as I said before, it's going to be a huge domain. It's not going to be just one company. Just a few example, Suite in the cloud space, that they're more of a threat detection and response platform from the cloud. So it's a real-time CNAP. But today, when you're doing a real-time CNAP, you also have to address the AI issues in the cloud as well. It's becoming a big thing and a real thing. And I think another good example is LayerX, that are into AI more from the user side, from the employee side. So they can give you visibility to what your employees are doing in terms of AI. They can protect your AI browsers and other AI tools that are almost no other way to protect. And I think, again, just three examples, but I think there'll be more in the next years. This is going to be a real space, and it's going to be a big one. And we talk a lot with CISOs. That's their main focus right now, is they try to look for solutions that will give them more visibility into what's going on with AI. So none of them, like the good CISOs, don't want to block users or employees, and don't want to say to them, don't use that, don't use this. But they want to know what's going on, and they want to be able to, block things if they're going to break, or if they're going to cause a damage. And so this is going to be a big domain as well.
Mm. So obviously, I know you got the advisory network, and obviously a lot of CISOs. I'm assuming you speak to CISOs on a regular. I saw you were doing something with a lot of CISOs as well recently. But tell me about what they're thinking. Like, what is the AI is just a mad crazy topic at the minute, isn't there? And there is so much that going on, and we're lucky that the likes of Noma, Suite, LayerX are coming through on different kind of pockets and areas of the market. But what are they thinking about as they're looking at AI as this big problem? There's attacks happening genuinely regularly now. How do they keep protected? What's kind of their front of mind?
No, I think it's super interesting, specifically with the AI. I think it's a great example of how things are moving much faster these days. So I'll tell you, a quick story. About 2 years ago, maybe now it's a little bit over 2 years, when all this agentic AI revolution started. I started asking our CISOs, what are their thoughts and so forth. And they came back with lots of questions, lots of questions, a lot of issues. We had a lot of very active discussions around this subject. But then, at least 2.5 years ago, when I almost always ask the CISO, like, my final question is almost always, would you buy? And back then, most of them said, no, we just want to learn, because they were trying to learn about this problem more or less in the same time that we learned about it, right? Because, again, to show you how fast the market is running right now, it's not that we have time to learn about something, then to create a product, then to ask the questions. It all happens at once. And at least back then, most of them were not ready to buy. I think in the last year or year and a half, and we're seeing it with the companies that I mentioned, they are more ready to buy. So it's still not a huge market, but they are buying. They are buying mostly to get visibility, so that to have a better understanding of the issues, and also not just the issues, even what their employees are doing, what tools they're using, and so forth, and how they're using them, and so forth and so forth. So they want to get visibility, and they want solutions that, at least theoretically, are very wide. It could give them a very wide very wide control over the problem. I think this is where we are right now. Um, and yeah, for us, it's great because it gives us this other opportunity to build, great companies and big companies. So this is where the market is right now. I think we still not fully understand, how we're using AI tools. We still not fully understand, what are the tools that we're using. There are certain areas like coding, R&D that completely being rebuilt because of AI, and it's still not clear exactly where the dust will settle and how will the R&D process look like in a few years. So we have to learn. We and our companies have to learn how to run very fast, very aggressively in a very changing market that is still even just starting the process of changing, and it's hard to know when it will stop. And it's I think it's another great reason why we have a benefit from working with such a close advisory board is that we can ask them questions, again and again, and it can be a different question, different answer, almost every month or every quarter for sure. And it's a very exciting process.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. And on the topic of running fast and growing companies, etc., people. And it's the world that I operate in kind of day to day, right? So we just do cybersecurity as well. But I think hiring the right people, irrespective of what role that is, if it's your first engineer or if it's your first CPO or whatever that may be, tell us about how you work with your companies on, especially early doors as well, like hiring your first VP of sales or whoever that may be. Just talk us through that a little bit.
Yeah. No, it's so right. We chatted about this before, is that at the end of the day, it's all about the people, right? It starts with the entrepreneurs and it's all about them. And even when we ask them, what the solution is going to look like and so forth, it's not really for the solution. It's more to learn how they're thinking about it, right? And how flexible they are and how aggressive they are and so forth. Because in good companies, the solution, the pitch, whatever, it will change by definition. So it's all about the people. And I try to, to convince or to talk with our founders. It's also roughly the same also for executives that they take. So sometimes people tend to think in, maybe too structured, and we look for someone with this specific background or for this specific job. And I would think about it, almost vice versa. It's first get the best people that have a best fit with your DNA or the DNA that you try to create. And even if the background is maybe not 100% what you thought, and maybe even you don't really have the exact position for them, you better get those people and then maybe, massage the position to have a better fit or whatever, create an organization that is adaptive to the people that live in it, as opposed to say no to a great person that is a great fit just because the exact position is a little bit different. And because the world is changing so much and it's all about the people, what you had in mind in terms of exactly how the position works and so forth is probably less important, because who knows, in 2 quarters you may change your structure anyways. But it's more about getting those great people and also do it as fast as possible. Good people can contribute also tomorrow, even if you plan, to get them only in 6 months. So, and this becomes, when you're trying to run a company very quickly, this become a big part of the tool set or the capabilities that a good CEO or good leader has, is the ability to identify, attract, and acquire, great talent. Which again is a good fit to the culture of the company. This becomes super important. Some people can do it fast. By the way, it also means that they can fail fast, but that's fine as well, as long as you figure it out and you cut your losses fast. And so you have people that can do it fast. You have people that takes them, I don't know, 8 months, 10 months just to to close important positions, and then it becomes hard to run very, very fast. So
yeah,
so super important attribute of a good CEO.
Definitely. I think even some of the searches that we run, like, is super important as well, because especially in that startup landscape at the moment, and it always has been kind of the same, to be fair, for the past 5-6 years, when people are looking for, call it a VP of sales, CMO, CPO, CTO, whatever the titles are, there is also probably at the same time 20 or 30 other companies looking for that exact position. And what we're seeing at the minute, especially around marketing, CMOs, VPs of marketing, etc., because marketing's changed so quickly over the past probably 2 years, like ridiculously quick, even sales, everything else, but more marketing as well. Everybody wants this persona. And sometimes it's our role to go in there and kind of go, just have you thought about this way? Can you look at it this way? Would you actually take somebody maybe who's a little bit more junior, who's got all the stuff you need, but then can grow up into that position? Because everybody wants the finished article kind of from day zero. But like you said, being able to adjust and pivot and have that kind of mentality as well is super, super important. What's your biggest pains across the VC world right now in terms of hiring?
In terms of hiring?
Yeah.
So for I would say for our companies or for companies with Israeli DNA, hiring the first go-to-market people in the US or the leading / first go-to-market people in the US is always a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Super important, people, of course, in the organization. And it's, to be honest, it's tough position specifically. Like our typical case would be that the company starts over here, the R&D stays here, and then the CEO is moving to the US. So it feels like a little bit, it feels like a company that's been running for a year or two, but in reality, the US office and the go-to-market function is typically very, very young. So it's not easy because you're looking for people that are, it's almost like a persona that does not exist. You want them to have a network. You want them to be able to sell. Let's call it CRO, right? So you want them to be able to be hands-on and sell, but also you want them to be able to build a big team very fast and to lead the team. You want them to really understand technology, but also be big managers. They need to start almost on their own, so not a lot of support's kind of getting built in parallel. So it's tough in terms of finding the right people. I think again the advantage that we have these days that maybe was not around 10 years ago is that those companies raise a lot of money, so they can actually pay, and they are, in terms of their profile, they're much more sexy and interesting than going to work for a big company, no matter what the name is. I don't want to mention any name, but yeah, because now I think people realize how huge the opportunity is, right? You get whatever you get in terms of option, and the company is doing well, then you become rich just on those, not to talk about commissions and stuff. So I think the opportunity is big, but also the level of people that we are looking for is growing, and yeah, it's not easy, but yeah, I mean, it's one of those things again that if you do it right, you can really run very, very fast. This is another example of an area that we try to help our portfolio companies in a very structured way, because many of them, even if they're second timers, then they've done it, in one company in the past. We've done it just in cybersecurity probably, I don't know, 40 times or something like that. So we are a little bit more expert on those things. And it's a great example of another place where I think a good partner or a good investor could help you.
Yeah. No, definitely. That first CRO, first VP of sales hire is an interesting one, isn't it?
Super tough.
I'm really seeing some exciting things though, because whereas maybe a couple of years ago, we would always look for the person who's done it 3 or 4 times, maybe, or maybe not 3 or 4 times, but along that length. Now, I think people are being a little bit more dynamic because the industry is moving at a pace that's never been seen before. And we see companies growing, scaling like really super quick. And the amount of funding that's coming back into it in the last 12 months, it's been a really, really interesting 12 months in search in particular as well, especially for that role. Is finding that right person, but attributes, and do they slot into the team culturally and all that other intangible stuff, which is our job really to go out there and find that before we present it as well.
No, it's very tough. I at least in recent years, I advise companies, for the CEO to move to the States and spend a lot of time with this person together. But not just the CEO, the team needs to really hug this specific person and help and understand. I think it all starts with understanding that there is this gap that we mentioned before. So, realizing that the gap exists is already like, halfway into solving the issue. But yeah, I mean, if you look at companies, I don't know what your stat is, but our original statistic was not that great, to be honest, in terms of how many of those first hires really, prove themselves. I think we're getting better, but it's still a big challenge, and you need to understand that there are some things you can do to improve the odds. It will never be 100%, hit rate, but there are some steps you can do to push it from, I don't know, 40% to 60, 70%, which is a big difference. So
Yeah, I think it's as well. It's sometimes that first hire, whoever comes in, even on GTM side or wherever, companies kind of look at it in different tranches almost, right? You go from 0 to 10 and 10 to 50 and then 50 to X, and it can be that person to take you all the way. We've seen it before, but sometimes it's just not.
yeah,
They're the 0 to 1, 0 to 10 guy, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And it's just about hiring that person and understanding that they only may be there for X period of time, and they
yeah,
9 times out of 10 people get it as well,
yeah.
which is interesting. But
Yeah, my advice here is always, focus on the first step. It's difficult enough. If you get yourself worried about what happens, in a couple of years, then it's probably going to be almost impossible. So, focus on the step at hand and do your best. And then, hopefully if things work, there are some chances this specific person is going to go with you for a long run. But even if not, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, no, amazing. Couple of questions before we finish it off. The first one, if you're speaking to a CEO today
hmm
who's just about to raise funding or looking for funding, what would you say to
Other than come to work with us.
them?
Well, I mean, there's so many different lessons. I'm doing this for, honestly, for so long, and I feel that sometimes I look back into, when I started being a VC, and definitely when I started being an entrepreneur, and I didn't know a fraction of what I'm doing, right now. But what I know right now, um, but no, there's just so many things. I think it's maybe the first lesson is that it's all about the people that you work with. So, pick up your, the best, co-founder or co-founders. Also pick the best the best investors. Specifically, the seed investors are so important because they become your partners as well. So I think this is the first one, the first most important thing. And then picking the right market is also very important, of course. In this market, companies that pivot, it's still doable, but it's very, very hard to be successful if you did not hit it right from day one. So you have to come super prepared to the specific segment or specific category that you're going after. And if you're not sure, you better, do a little bit more homework before you raise and start running. Those are probably the most important, lessons, but there are so many. It's
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
hard.
No, I can imagine. I'm going to follow that on actually with another one. If you had to go right back to the beginning of your career, what would you tell yourself?
I think maybe those are the things, to be honest, that maybe I rushed into things like, too fast because I was so eager
hmm
to start. I mean, I had this thing in my mind that I need to start my first company before I'm 30. So I had
Yeah.
to run very, very fast. So I don't think, to be honest, that I was that good in really, like, I think this is an issue that sometimes you have with young entrepreneurs is that they get excited about the idea and not necessarily have the tools or the time or the desire to really deep dive and to figure out if the idea is good or not, like to do real due diligence to their own
Mm.
idea. Maybe again, it's also not having the tools, but I was just so convinced that I'm doing the best and greatest things ever. So I did not really think too much. Um, and then also I think to learn to get advice in a better way. All right. I think it's about. I mean, there are some people that don't like to take advice. I was not this type of person, but I think it's more about really picking, one, two, three people that you get advice from, and that's it. I mean, if you get advice from too many people, it's also going to work against you because sometimes they'll say contradicting things or whatever, and the message becomes a blur. So you have to, make your picks, who you are, working with in terms of, getting advice or getting, tips and just, and then, be very open to get comments from those specific, one, two, three people. So that to create a balance between listening to everyone and then changing your direction every so often, which is not good, to being too close and just relying on yourself. So
Yeah.
that's one thing that I could do better, to be honest. Looking back.
Yeah, no, makes sense. I always ask that for a selfish reason. I was trying to pick out things, and it's just interesting because I went for the same at the beginning. I was taking advice off way too many people.
Yeah, that
And
actually happens to a lot. And then if you are like a good guy, and I like to work with good guys, it's very hard to get, a suggestion or a thought or whatever from someone and completely ignoring it. So you end up trying to do a little bit of that, a little bit of this, and then it's not a good, news at all. So yeah, I think that's an important one actually.
yeah, no, I love it. I love it. Well, Kobi, appreciate you coming on.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me. And yeah, great to have you in Tel Aviv. I wish you were here for a longer time, but it is what it is.
I'm sure I'll be back. That's for sure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.